back to the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. I'm joined today by Joel Panciera, Kelly Borycki, and Kate Parker, who are ready to discuss a show that is coming up for Broadway at Boston Avenue. And I want to know, first of all, how does a theater production operate as a ministry?
This is Joel Panciera speaking. I'm the music director here at the church. And I guess of all the people here, I have the longest tenure. I've been here for about 20 years. And to be honest, when I first learned about the program at Boston Avenue, I was not familiar ever with a church that had such an active drama program. And over the years, over and over and over, these qualities of fellowship and the way the program works is not to try and imitate a professional or a semi-professional production, but just to draw all different ages of people, children, youth, and adults together, and to give them this almost impossible task of doing a show together, often with people that you don't know or just barely have met, and just the learning process and the incredible close bonding process that comes when you're in a show. If you've ever been in a show, it is like the ultimate team sport. Everyone relies on each other. Everyone knows when, for instance, when a person's song is coming up where they're just either nailing it or it's like, okay, come on, you can do it. And if you've ever been backstage in a show, you know it's like a dance. People moving in, people moving out, people helping other people dress, people helping carry things. It is this incredibly closely bonded kind of environment. So number one, I think it was the fellowship aspect. It was also then the creative challenge of doing it. And then, of course, when you do shows that are great, you affirm all these life-affirming kind of values that make you feel like you're telling a story which is improving the world.
How does it help you grow spiritually or love your neighbor or any of that? How does being in a show help with those things?
This is Kate Parker. I'm playing T Moon in the show this year. I think for me, it's definitely, like Joel said, it's about building a holy community, and you spend that time getting to know each other really well and relying heavily on each other, and those relationships last throughout the rest of the year. You continue to look to each other in times of struggle and in times of joy, and it really is like building a little family within your church family.
And Kelly and Kate, this is not your first year being involved with the Baba production, right?
Right. This is my third show with Baba, and
This is Kelly. This is my fifth show.
So one of the questions that I have, because my theater tastes probably tend a little more towards the like PG-13 styling. So how do you go about having a modern and relevant drama production while also recognizing that you are coordinating all of that inside of a church?
It's always a challenge. All of us are also on the planning committee, and a big part of our time is spent evaluating shows and choosing a show that would be right for the people that are likely to try out. But also we're looking for shows that have a message that obviously it's ideal if it's an explicitly Christian message, and we've done a number of shows like that over the years. But we're looking for shows that, for instance, have characters that might not be perfect, but are through sacrifice or through trial and error are redeemed in the end, or there are conflicts which occur, which then are resolved in a very positive way, where characters kind of give up part of themselves to help others. And so through telling stories and through inspiring music, dance, movement, and the visual arts, these same kinds of messages that we talk about on Sunday mornings and other worship services can be illustrated perhaps in more dramatic ways than a more placid kind of worship setting. And so when you think about it, every church probably could benefit from this kind of program, but you have to be very careful for sure.
And we do take precautions and take some parts of the script out. Depends on the show, what the kind of content level is.
But all you lawyers out there,
we do it.
Turn
yes.
your ears off right now. Sorry.
Well, and especially this year, most of the changes are sanctioned by the people who wrote the
There we go.
story. So there are the original, what you would see on Broadway, but then there are also, this is the alternate to use if you're doing it with a high school or with a church in a setting where it needs to be something that's a little bit more family friendly. And I think those changes that we make, we keep in the things that really matter to the story, and then we leave out the things that are distracting that would kind of take away from the message of positivity or of love.
It's true too. It's not only for the content, if there are words that are problematic or even situations in shows we've changed that are problematic, but also sometimes for the benefit, because the whole reason for doing the show is for the benefit of the people of our church and our community. So if we have a lot of guys and we don't have enough parts for guys, then we'll split a character and give more lines so more are shared. The goal is to involve everyone as much as possible.
So this is Caitlin, Phillips' unintroduced co-host, by the way.
Ouch. Ouch.
Okay.
And you mentioned kind of including everyone or opening it up to everyone. And I initially was really skeptical about a theater program in a church. Like, it just didn't vibe. But I'm also from a much more conservative, traditional church background that didn't really add any new things. I'm a former Catholic. So, they don't add a lot of new stuff on the regular. So one of the things that struck me the first year that I was here at Boston Avenue about Baba was the intergenerational element and just how all of those ages are included. And there aren't a lot of spaces in church that do that well. So can you talk a little bit about this intergenerational aspect?
So Baba actually was one of the things that drew me to Boston Avenue when I had first moved to Tulsa and I was looking for a church home. I did know a few people who were going to be in the show that particular year, so some of the reason I wanted to do it was because I knew I would have friends in the show, but throughout the 5 years that I have been in the shows, I have gotten the chance to work with so many people that I probably never would have even met. Let alone, as Joel said, you build such a relationship, such a family with people that you're in a show with. And we don't have quite the age spread that we had in last year's show, which was 60-something plus years between the youngest and the oldest. But this was definitely a show where we needed children. There are parts specifically for children in the show. So we've got, I think, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 11 or 12-year-old. So that's awesome to have them involved in the show this year.
I really value my two children. One just got out of master's program, and Anne, our youngest, is currently in college. But they both have been in Baba shows, a number of shows over the years, and those friendships, those adults that they worked with, they're still in contact with, they're still friends with, and those relationships would not have happened, even unfortunately suffering the plight of being a child of a staff member, where all these adults go up and give you a hug and they don't know who they are. But that of course happens. But when you're in a show together, there's a difference. There's a different kind of connection. And as the parent, I would encourage all parents out there to think about it, because those relationships last and they're still going strong.
When the show is chosen, do you look for an intergenerational aspect, or is it just kind of a coincidence that luckily that's the show that you wanted and it has roles for all ages? Or how do you decide it based upon that? Or there's probably a lot of things that go into deciding what show, but is that one of them?
Absolutely, yes. That's one. The only exception would be sometimes there are certain years where we're just pooped. We're just tired, and so we might not want to have too massive of an intergenerational challenge because we feel like the group is burned out. But
Some years when we can't, pull together 7 children for Sound of Music or something like that.
But it's always a consideration for sure.
What are some other factors that are considered when you're selecting a show?
We definitely try to look at who we think is going to be around in the summer to do the show. This year, as kind of tends to happen with community theaters, we don't have a lot of men. So we kind of tried, when we were making our short list for possibilities this year, that was just kind of something we had to keep in mind. Or, as Joel mentioned before, if we have these male characters, can they become women? How would that work? Things like that.
I think something else which is really important, like for instance this year, we always do a dance also with the director. Many years, the choice of the director is not so hard because it's a person who's a member of the church, but there's always this difficult challenge of choosing the director, but then also having input from the committee and the director for what the show is. And sometimes the director doesn't want to do the show the committee likes and vice versa. So finding the right mix for the director and the committee is always a challenge. And this year, our director, who we were really excited about, really wanted to do a show that spoke to where we are now as a country and a community and as a world. And so that definitely influenced all of our discussions. We wanted to choose a show that had modern relevance, maybe more than other years. And definitely Once on This Island is that kind of show.
And I think another thing that's really great about this show in particular is that all of the roles are kind of moderate sized. So you have 5 or 6 significantly large parts, which was really something that we needed with the women who were available this summer, wanting to be more involved and wanting to take a big chunk of responsibility for putting something amazing on stage. So the fact that it wasn't a, kind of romantic duo that's really heavy in a lead part with a lot of stage time and then a ensemble of backup dancers. This is a little bit more balanced in terms of part sizes.
Why was this show selected, this particular show? Because you mentioned it's Once on This Island, and why was it selected for this year?
I think part of the reasons that this is a great show, following what we did with Guys and Dolls last year. Guys and Dolls, everybody loves it. It's kind of an old classic, but it is old and kind of long in terms of runtime. And so this year we've got Once on This Island. The runtime's only about an hour and a half. It's very modern. They just did a big revival of it last year, and it won a whole bunch of Tonys. And it's really upbeat. It's Caribbean music, as you might guess from the name of it. And so it's kind of a great follow-up, but also contrast to what we did with Guys and Dolls last year.
Any cursory look at the news would include the issue of the mixing of peoples who are different, and our country is especially, but not just our country. I think the countries of the world are struggling with borders and with this idea of what it means to be part of the in-group, who's on the in-group, who's on the out-group, how do the two different groups treat each other. And without giving away a lot of the story, this story is directly related to kind of a Romeo and Juliet or a kind of Little Mermaid kind of thing, where you have two people who have a relationship who cross those boundaries. And it's about what's involved, the negative side, the dark side of that, but then also how relationships and sacrifice can be redemptive.
So Kelly and Kate, you guys are both in the show. What are you excited about the show?
The thing that's been the most fun so far is the music is just fabulous. It is so much fun, and I kind of say that every year. The more you get into learning a piece, the more you learn to love it. And but this year, it's just pure fun Caribbean music, and the dancing that we've picked up, and the songs. Some of the harmonies are just kind of delightful, and we have an excellent percussionist, Blair Hines, who's going to do a fabulous job with all these kind of unique instruments. That's going to be a really good time. So I think I'm most excited to rehearse and perform with our band and hear everything in its full sound, because it sounds great.
And like Kate mentioned, with the smaller cast size of this show, it gives maybe more people than some years an opportunity to have a bigger part than they've been able to show off in the past. For example, we have Amelia Huntsman, who is one of our high school students, who is playing the Demon of Death in the show, and it's been really cool for those of us who have kind of seen her grow up she's killing it, to just be able to see her growth and how amazing she's doing in this role.
Demon of Death. I can see Amelia all over that. She's got some personality power. That's fun.
Can you tell us how Broadway at Boston Avenue, how BABA fits into our core values or our church identity, which you kind of got into earlier, but maybe go more in depth about how it fits into that?
I can take that one since I'm familiar with, as in terms of developing programs, thinking that way is a really, really important thing. And as I was thinking about that question, it occurred to me that there's a lot that I think BABA involves and addresses. First of all, any member of our church community can be a member of can be a member of BABA, so that all are affirmed. An audition is not required. So everyone is welcome to be a part of the show in any way. And so in that way, I think we're as affirming as we can. And that's actually kind of unusual for drama programs. Of course, it's an affirmation of music and the arts and the cultivation of the arts. The idea of growing spiritually. I know I've not been on stage. Usually my help over the years has been in the pit. The few times that I've been on stage, I can tell you I have grown a lot, not just artistically, but also in the spiritual sense of really better appreciating when you inhabit. Like, for instance, one year I had the opportunity to be Benjamin Franklin in 1776. And I can tell you my feeling about our country and about those early times is different because I inhabited that part. So definitely challenges like this help you grow in spiritual ways. Another core goal is excellence. And of course, we're never perfect, but striving to be as best we can. And not only that, but if you're a part of a really good cast experience, which I know this year's is, you're made better by everyone else being made better. So you're busting your butt to make sure that people around you are having the best opportunity to shine, so to speak. And the other thing, too, that I think is true in shows like this, it's not always true, but a good theater experience should make you think. And it should turn things upside down a little bit and challenge your assumptions about how things are. And so in that way, reason is also an important part.
And we kind of talked about this earlier, talking about the intergenerational aspect, but I was talking about the show with somebody else who's a member of the church who's not involved in the show this year, and we were talking specifically about our kiddos that we have in the show, and she said to me, "You guys are the church for them." And that really had an impact on me, and it makes me think maybe a little bit differently about how I interact with the whole cast, but definitely those who are younger than me especially.
So if another church or a member of a church that isn't part of Boston Avenue was listening to this podcast and thinking like, wow, maybe we should have like a theater ministry, what would you tell them?
That has happened. I would say about once every 5 or so years, I'll get a call like that, and it always makes me really, really happy. And what I typically do is set up a meeting, and it's not a short conversation. It's actually a pretty extensive conversation, and unfortunately, too often, pretty much in every case, they have this other church has tried it once, and then they saw how hard it is, how much work it is. And it usually doesn't continue beyond one time. So it takes my first reaction to that great question, which would be go for it, but be ready to spend a lot of time and effort because it's a big challenge.
And to not get discouraged after the first year.
Exactly.
Like do it a couple years because it'll still be hard, but it'll get easier after you've done it a few times.
Yeah, you have the deeper your bench is, the better.
I think it Also, I mean, having done community theater and even having danced in a semi-professional background, it's really valuable to me to be a part of a theater community that is so based in love, and there's no kind of slavish dedication to perfection. It's all about really putting something meaningful together and developing that community. So I guess if a program at another church were to take off, I would say, just remember, the better you get and the more success you have, to stay committed to why you started, which was to create this kind of community.
Now we're going to get to my favorite questions, because I love musical theater. And I want to know, I mean, I could do this for another hour if we had time. I want to know from Kelly and Kate, what is your favorite show?
That I've seen or that I've been in?
Both, or even if you haven't seen it, if you just love the music. Whichever way you want to answer that, you can.
My favorite show that I've seen several times and listened to, probably in the hundreds of times by now, is Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. To be the narrator in that is definitely on my bucket list. So, hey, Baba committee, maybe sometime in the next couple of years. We'll see. My favorite show that I've been in was probably Annie, Get Your Gun.
My favorite show is Finding Neverland, which is a rather new one, but it is just, I remember when I saw it for the first time, and it was just on tour. I didn't even see it in New York, but as I said, I come from a theater and dance background and have done quite a bit of backstage work, so there's many shows that I see now that don't surprise me anymore. They're still good, and I can appreciate the talent and everything, but there's not really that sense of magic for me anymore when I go see a Broadway show, except for when I saw Finding Neverland. I was just blown away, and it had that same feeling of your first Broadway show, your first kind of experience in the theater. So Finding Neverland is my favorite that I've seen several times on stage. And then favorite to be in, probably this one. I've been in more dance shows than in musicals, so this is only one of 3 that I've done so far, but getting to take a bigger part this year has been such a wonderful challenge.
Awesome. I've never seen Finding Neverland, but I know the music. I have the soundtrack, and Matthew Morrison, it was the original Broadway cast for that, and it is amazing.
Yes,
I
it's
love the
beautiful.
music. And I feel like I have to answer this because
Yes,
I like
please
theater.
do.
So I'm going to anyways, even though nobody asked me. As Caitlin rolls her eyes at me. My favorite show I've been in is The Fantastics. Do you know The Fantastics? Jerry Orbach originated the El Gallo role, and I was Matt, who was the teenage love interest in that show. And my favorite show of all time is Les Mis, because I love the music, and I saw the tour of it when I was a senior in high school. Can you tell me if you've been in more than one show? Which this is your 3rd, Baba?
This is my 3rd.
And this is your
yes.
5th? So you've at least been in 3 or 5 shows. What shows have you been in before?
So I actually started doing theater way back in elementary school. The first one that I was ever in was the local high school's production of Annie. I was 8, and I was just kind of one of the little girls in the orphanage. My 5 Baba shows, this one, Addams Family, Guys and Dolls, Meet Me in St. Louis, and Anything Goes are my 5 Baba shows.
And then as I said, I grew up dancing, so most of my performance experience has been in dance shows, kind of Rockette style dancing. But I was also in Addams Family and in Guys and Dolls here at the church, both dancing in the ensemble.
Awesome. I was a tap dancing sailor in Anything Goes when I was a senior in high school too, but I rather enjoyed that show. And then I did Joseph once, and that's a fun show as well. But anyways, that's... Caitlin, do you have something to ask or say?
I do. So I kind of want to give you guys an opportunity. One, if you had 2 sentences to tell somebody why they should come see this show if they're in Tulsa, what would you tell them? And then 2, when is this show running? How do people find out about tickets?
No matter your theater background, you will love this, because if you're a grizzled veteran of musical theater, this has all of the fun and all of the music and all of the drama that you're expecting. If you have never been to a theater show before in your life, this is a good place to start, because as Kelly mentioned, it is short. It is 1 act and a little over an hour long, so you don't have to commit to any 3-hour My Fair Lady nonsense. And but yeah, so it's very accessible because it's shorter, and it's also just a lot of fun. So it's friendly for children, and
going off of what Kate said, the show definitely is family friendly. The way that the play is presented is that there's a big storm happening and there's a little girl who's afraid. And so the other people in her village tell her this story about what happened once on this island to try and calm her down during the storm. So definitely accessible to all ages. The church does offer free childcare if you want to come to the show with kids who are maybe a little too little to be able to sit through the whole show. Just contact the church. The show dates are Sundays, July 21st and July 28th. Those are matinees starting at 2:30. We open on July the 19th, and so we have shows the 19th, 25th, and 26th at 7 o'clock.
And how do they get tickets? How can they get buy tickets for the show?
You can call the church, or you can stop by. There is a special desk where the tickets are being sold a certain window of time, but I think you can also pick them up at the church office window.
I believe the time is 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
10 to 2.
Because I just asked him, because I'm going to go buy my tickets
Yes.
as soon as we're done at the church.
You can also buy them at the door if you want to wait until the day of. Obviously, it's better to get your seats sooner so you can pick your spot and everything, but if you decide last minute that you definitely want to come, there's usually a seat or two left.
And it's assigned seating?
It
not
is
general
assigned
admission?
seating, yes.
And there is a place online where folks can find out more, right?
Sure, you can either find the Broadway at Boston Avenue site through the church website, bostonavenue.org, or you can go to Facebook and Google, or not Google, but search on Facebook for Broadway at Boston Avenue, and that will take you to our Facebook page.
And that's a place to keep up with all the fun promotional stuff we're doing. There's a video of our percussionist. There'll be some photos from the show and everything, so make sure and go follow along with that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you to Joel, Kelly, and Kate for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
This has been the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. We're located at 1301 South Boston in downtown Tulsa. Come check out our Facebook page to see what's going on. Check out the Broadway at Boston Avenue page, and so you can get your tickets and come see the show. Thank you.